to me over these past 2 years and wish him nothing but the best. There's responsibility that falls on me. We haven't been good enough defensively, particularly closing out games.
Big Dash knows what?
Hello and welcome to Big Dash Knows. Big Dash knows what? New York Giants football. Let's go. First off, I want to say welcome back. Welcome back. You see the thumbnail. Welcome back to Isaiah Hodgins. We got some things to talk about. And what I said about Joe Shane last week with the whole little Jordan Humphrey thing absolutely is the reason why we have Isaiah Hodgins right now. Quick little background. First off, again, welcome back, Isaiah Hodgins. A possession receiver that's needed on this team right now. I saw a joke on Twitter that said, you know what, it's the 2022 wide receiver room all over again. It's Darius Slayton, it's Wan'Dale Robinson, and it's Isaiah Hodgins. The 2022 wide receiver room is back. So never mind that. Remember, little Jordan Humphreys just got poached off of our practice squad. And I always thought it was funny that we didn't sign little Jordan Humphrey to the 53. I thought it was a money thing. I thought maybe, they didn't feel like it was an important enough move to sign him to the 53. But as soon as he gets poached, all of a sudden the New York Giants find a way, find some money, and go ahead and sign Isaiah Hodgins off of the Pittsburgh Steelers practice squad. So for me, I'm sitting back like, is this a Kafka thing? Because we know the relationship Kafka had with Isaiah Hodgins. Again, Isaiah Hodgins helped us in that playoff game immensely. So I'm actually glad to have him. But I have to say in the back of my mind, like, yeah, this was a reactive move instead of a proactive move. We weren't proactive enough to sign little Jordan Humphrey. He gets taken back to Denver, and then all of a sudden, a day after that, early morning, we get the news that the New York Giants have signed Isaiah Hodgins off of the Pittsburgh Steelers practice squad. So it is what it is with that. But again, welcome back. I think he's a needed type of wide receiver that the New York Giants don't currently have with anybody else that's on the roster. So outside of that, we're going to talk about some practice notes. They did talk to the coordinators today. That was fantastic. Found out some news today too, because yesterday I put out a report. Well, yesterday I saw a report when they had the injury report listed. They had a couple question marks next to people's names that were missing from practice. One of those names is Young Koo. Well, I thought Young Koo was on the injury list. Come to find out today, Mike Jobrel, special teams coordinator, said that yesterday it was windy. So they took advantage of a windy day at MetLife, and instead of Young Koo kicking at the practice facility, they took him out to the stadium to practice kicking in those wind conditions, which for me is probably one of the smartest moves ever. Because now you got this guy kicking in the actual stadium building that he'll actually be kicking in this weekend, dealing with windy conditions, and we know how MetLife is, and that's a very smart move. That's a very smart move, in my opinion, for the New York Giants to do something like that. So shout out to special teams coach Mike Jobrel for making that move and making that call to have, not just him, but have the kickers in the at MetLife kicking with those under those wind conditions. Now, I wanted to hear what Shane Bowen had to say. After the firing of Brian Daboll, you didn't hear much from anybody. Yesterday, we got a chance to hear from Mike Kafka. We got a chance to hear from him today, too. But I wanted to see what Shane Bowen had to say. And I got my handy-dandy notebook. Let's just talk about some things that Bowen said. So he actually took some responsibility to, the Daboll firing. He's saying, this defense didn't close out games 100%. And the crazy thing about it, not even a crazy thing about it, because everybody already knows, Brian Daboll stuck his neck out for Shane Bowen. Brian Daboll could have been fired Shane Bowen, and he didn't. And ultimately, I think that's what also caused Brian Daboll his job. It's not the only thing that caused Brian Daboll his job. I saw the article that Jordan Renan put out. A lot of juicy tidbits, pause in that article talking about just the emotional what would I say just the outburst that Brian Dable had throughout his time here. More recently, he threatened to take play calling away from Mike Kafka. We've seen him do that before, but again, it's not a surprise to me that after the coach is gone, you're hearing all these reports, man. That's what you hear all the time. They try to keep everything under wraps before something like this happens, but as soon as somebody leaves, somebody is fired, then all of the reports, all of the stories, all of the things that we never heard about before start. That we saw the same thing happen with Wink Martindale when he was let go, and then you hear about all the pushing meeting times and not including certain positional coaches in the meetings and stuff like that. Again, is it all true? Maybe not, but there's always some truth to everything. Also, he said that Kafka made an emphasis on locking down the fourth quarters. That because remember we had the quote yesterday when they asked Kafka if he spoke to Shane Bowen, and one of the things he talked about was, I guess, the defense. And he said, one of those things. He said he's going to keep the conversation private, but he did make an emphasis on closing out the fourth quarter, which to me is the biggest of all deals, because if we close out in the fourth quarter, the New York Giants probably have 3 more wins, and maybe Brian Dable is still here. So who knows what happens? Anything and everything happens for a reason. It just is what it is. He also talked about regarding changes on the defense. He says he's working through a lot of injuries, but he also said that he doesn't expect like big changes to happen. And to me, it's very simple. One of those changes needs to be Dexter Lawrence needs to be playing at the nose full time. Don't experiment with the 3 technique anymore. Dexter Lawrence can do almost anything, but I'm just talking about for the New York Giants and what we need. We need Dexter in that A gap or directly over the center, in my opinion. What this tells me is that Kafka absolutely had a conversation with Shane Bowen, just probably asking like, hey, Dable's gone. We know what the issues are. We need you guys to be able to finish these games. This offense is putting up points, and at the end of the day, we got to play complementary football. And like you said, you can't make wholesale changes in the middle of a season. It's something that you can't do, especially when you're making a change, in an active week. Again, Brian Dable got fired, and then we got the Green Bay Packers game right away. You're not making crazy changes. Maybe you might see more changes once we come back off of the bye week, or maybe some of those changes happen throughout the next couple of weeks before we get to the bye week. But for us fans, we gotta just temper our expectations a bit. I don't expect the defense to look absolutely different against the Packers, but I do expect not to see Brian Burns getting dropped in coverage, and I expect to see Dexter Lawrence playing more nose tackle. That's not a big change, and hopefully that's something that they're talked about. Now, that's enough for Shane Bowen. Let's talk about the new offensive coordinator, Tim Kelly, right? Tim Kelly, they asked him about his role, and he said he's going to be more involved in the total game plan. He said prior to this change, he was involved in the running game, in the game plan for the running game. Now he's going to be in, the entire planning of because he's an offensive coordinator. He's going to be involved in the total game plan. So, that's something you said that was a little bit different, on top of still having his tight end duties. He also said he will be on the sideline. He believes that he will be on the sideline and not up in the booth. He says, and he'll be also involved in the game day adjustments, which just makes sense to me. If you're a coordinator and if the game plan is not working and somebody needs to make some adjustments, of course it's going to be the head coach and the OC making those type of adjustments. But he also said it's not enough time to make big adjustments. Same thing as with the defense. You can't expect big changes to happen. But when you really think about it, what's been the main issue for the New York Giants? It has not been the offense as much. The offense has been able to score points. He did say that the running game needs to be more consistent. But outside of that, the offense has been able to score points. Our issue is the defense not being able to hold these other offenses. So for me, it's just like you're hearing a lot of the right things, right? But how much as a fan do you expect to see, or how many changes do you expect to see right away? I'm going to sit back, pump the brakes a little bit. Obviously, I'm excited about the changes, and I'm excited to see what could happen. But I also have to think about, this is not Jackson Dart starting yet. This is Jameis Winston. So as happy as I want to be, we're still not looking at our future franchise quarterback playing against the Packers. we're looking at Jameis Winston, which Jameis Winston has had a lot of success, playing against the Packers. More recently, when he played with the Saints, I think he threw for almost 500 yards against the Packers. So he's familiar with beating the Packers. So we'll see what happens. I do got one quote from Kafka, and he was just saying that says for Dart, he says coaches noticed. Oh, this is when Dart went out with the concussion. Obviously, they didn't catch it right away. So he said for Dart, he said coaches noticed that that he didn't sound right and it didn't feel right, and then they had the doctors check him out. Now, I've had this discussion a bunch of times over the last week, or since it happened, and I saw that he was knocked out. He was concussed. For him to go back in that game for another series, have some plays, and it took a commercial break before they were able to get him out of the game, I'm glad to see that these guys are starting to clean things up a bit, because it's like, how does everybody miss this? But we didn't know exactly who made the call to get Jackson Dart checked out. So it was the New York Giants staff that asked the doctors to check him out, not New York calling in or anything like that. So that is a good thing that the New York Giants were the ones that point out that he didn't seem right. Again, they said he didn't sound right, and they didn't feel right about how he was sounding. So he probably was a little bit, not, how it is when you're a little bit groggy. You might have said some things that don't make sense or something like that, but they're saying that he didn't sound right. Now, he did go back in that game, have a completion and stuff like that. So if this was the 80s, the 90s, most likely he's still in that game. And how many players that you think about now probably went back in the games concussed? A lot of them, and that's why we're dealing with issues like CTE and stuff like that, where players are just out there putting themselves in harm's way. But that's the update for the day. I didn't see any other reports as far as practice goes. What do the New York Giants have to do now? What Al Davis say? Just win, baby. That's it. Just win, baby. I'm not one of those guys that's looking at tankathon. Why? Because I don't care about tanking, because you only tank when you need a quarterback. We already got a quarterback. Wherever we land when it comes to the draft. But let's hope that the New York Giants can get a couple victories here in this last stretch. But with that being said, I want to thank everybody for vibing with me. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And from one Giants fan to another, this is Big Dash Knows, Big Blue Nation. Welcome back to Isaiah Hodgins. Let's go.